We've had really good press come to the hotel. Like, we were in Vogue, we were in Forbes and Travel and Leisure.
My guests have 15 years of architecture and construction experience. They own a hotel in Palm Springs that has been featured in both Vogue and Forbes. They co-host over 40 short-term rentals and mid-term rentals across multiple states.
Diana's projects were typically $500 to $600 million, and mine were $800 to $1 billion projects.
Our unfair advantage was we're architects. We understand construction really well. We can put together, we can move so much faster than everyone else. We can create a product that is unique and different because we can both be the architect, developer, owner. Like, we control every part of the puzzle.
It's one thing to have this idea, but how do you actually make this happen?
The biggest change that we did was we had to relearn everything that we had learned about real estate. Part of real estate, I think it requires that constant mindset of you're not failing, like you're learning, and everything's a lesson, and sometimes those lessons cost money.
As someone who isn't in architecture or design, like, what's the highest leverage, like, design decisions that people should be focusing on? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Lowdown. I'm your host, Lorenzo Mercado. And today, my guests have 15 years of architecture and construction experience. They own a hotel in Palm Springs that has been featured in both Vogue and Forbes. They're currently in the middle of renovating their second hotel. And on top of all that, they co-host over 40 short-term rentals and mid-term rentals across multiple states. They are a husband and wife design powerhouse couple, and they're exactly the kind of operators that this show can really benefit from. So Josh and Deanna, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lorenzo, for having us. It's really excited to be here.
Yeah, of course. So before we get into the hotel stuff, like Terra Palm Springs and other hotel you're renovating, maybe we could just talk about what your guys' background was before that. I don't know if you guys had W-2 jobs before this or if you guys have always been full-time real estate investors, but just walk me through what you guys did before all hotel stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So Josh and I come from a background, like you mentioned, in architecture and construction management. We met in grad school a long time ago, it feels like now. But yeah, we both, before real estate, we both had W-2 jobs in commercial architecture. I was working for a firm based in Seattle, focusing primarily on multifamily, like large-scale multifamily, a lot of student housing, just traveling across the country, working on those very large-scale projects.
And I was working in sports venues, entertainment venues, convention centers, like anything like really big where people just kind of want to like gather together for like big events.
Yeah. And then we actually quit our jobs not that long ago. I quit my job 2 years ago, and Josh recently, about 6 months ago.
Can't believe it.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. It was the middle of July when we finally both were W-2 free.
Yeah, it's been a process. But no, we started like everyone else, honestly, even though we come from a background in commercial architecture and real estate, working hand in hand with developers. It's really funny because we always look back and we're like, the world of real estate and the world of development, especially, like, it was never something that we thought we could even achieve or even get into. Yeah, it was, even though we were very much in line working in it every single day, it was never something that we thought we would be doing ourselves one day. So we started just like everyone else, buying residential real estate, buying single family homes, duplexes, turning them around, flipping them. Most of them we kept and we've rented out. But yeah, that's really how we got started, just like everyone else in the same path of trying to achieve financial freedom.
Yeah. That's like a very, very summarized version. That was really efficient, but yeah, that was perfect.
Yeah. And then when did you guys actually decide to make that jump into hotels? Because one thing is residential, and it's definitely challenging, but going into hotels is a totally different beast.
Absolutely.
So make that decision to go into that.
I think the biggest thing is that it's really interesting. And they always say, like, you are who you surround yourself with, right? And it was really interesting because we always saw real estate as a side thing. It was really hard for us, I think, identity-wise, and to the things that we were working on at the time, to consider or even think of quitting our jobs full-time to do real estate full-time. Because realistically, we got into architecture and design because we were really passionate about what we did. It definitely was not for the money. Architects don't make that much money, even though everyone thinks they do. But we really loved what we did. We had amazing jobs, worked at amazing companies, and it was really hard for us to ever even think about quitting our jobs, even though we were completely surrounded by people who were constantly in the real estate world talking about, I can't wait to quit my W-2, real estate is my future, all these things. And to us, we always looked at ourselves and we were like, well, I don't know, like the residential real estate, it's a means to an end, but we never saw ourselves like really quitting our jobs and doing that full time for the rest of our lives. I think we really struggled with that.
It really started, I think real estate in general for us started as a way. So we were living in Seattle. I had been moved out here for a project that I was working on for my company, and the project was ending, and it was like, how could we possibly ever afford to live in a place like this? Or like, I mean, there's a lot of very expensive coastal cities. You, Lorenzo, you live in one as well. We've experienced that. I'm originally from the East Coast, an expensive area as well. And it's like, how are we going to be able to afford this lifestyle on two architect salaries? And so we used real estate as a way to like support the W-2s, not thinking at the time that we were going to leave our W-2s behind even at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I think we've maybe gone off on a little bit of a tangent from the question of how we got into commercial. So you can go ahead, because that's kind of your story.
Yeah, the biggest thing that happened was I think we were really struggling with that piece of like completely stretched from our profession, but also stretched trying to make real estate happen and work. We were like working a 9 to 5, and then every hour outside of that, just fixing homes and trying to rent them and just doing all the real estate stuff. But we were actually in San Diego at a BP conference, like the BPCon conference, and it's really funny. I always laugh about this because the reason it happened is because we were too cheap to stay at the conference at the hotel that everyone was staying at for the conference. Like the rooms were like, I don't know, $500 a night.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not paying $500 a night. So we ended up booking an Airbnb that at the time we didn't know it was a Sonder hotel. And when we arrived, it was super close to the conference center. But when we arrived, I was just mesmerized by like the building. Like it was an apartment building, multifamily, which is my background, but it operated as a hotel. It had no one at the check-in, self-check-in, like all the instructions were super clear. The building was beautiful. And I was just like, the entire time we were there, I was like just paying a lot of attention to like all the little details of like the cleaners were the maintenance people, but like there was really no front desk. Like their operations were probably super low, and all these things just started to connect in my mind. And I remember I came out of the shower and I told Josh, I'm like, Josh, this is what we should do. Like we should do boutique hotels. Like multifamily is my bread and butter. Like I understand it really well. And that can be a way that we can actually apply more of our skill set of commercial architecture into what we're doing in real estate, and also actually be passionate about what we're doing, because we just didn't feel that passion before. So yeah, that was like 3 years ago. And at the time, no one was talking about hotels. There were not even masterminds about boutique hotels. There was a few people that were known, like Rich Sommers, Blake Daly, were starting to talk about boutique hotels. I think each of them had a couple under their belt, but really it was just like at the perfect time, the perfect circumstances were happening that made us think like, wait, we have an opportunity here that we could really make our niche and really dive into, that really will get us passionate about what we're doing and not continue doing this real estate like residential side that really it wasn't what we were passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Josh, was that a hard pitch for you when she came out of the shower? Was like, let's do hotels.
I was like,
It's not the first one, so it's not like that.
honestly, no, it wasn't. It was very much like, well, this makes perfect sense, because I think one of the initial struggles that we had was that residential scale was just, it wasn't moving the needle fast enough for what we wanted, how we felt comfortable, in the built environment, the built world, just because we're so used to working on projects that are, Diana's projects were typically $500 to $600 million, and mine were, 800 to any $1 billion projects. And so it
Yeah,
felt
very different
like
scale.
the scales were so far off that when she came out and said that, I was just like, yeah, we should be trying to move into a commercial scale anyway. Like, I feel like that's the highest and best use of what we can do.
Yeah. I mean, with guys' background already, with $1 billion that you guys are currently managing, I don't know, $1 million or $2 million hotel kind of seems like nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of already setting you up for success.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that like where, when we're working for someone else who's doing that level of development, it's a lot less scary when you're like in certain roles of it. But when you are signing, on the dotted line, yeah, the pressure goes up even at the smaller amounts.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I resonate with a lot of you guys, what you guys are saying. I mean, I was telling you before we got on the call, but I'm a nurse. I've been nursing for 10 years now. I got started in residential as well. I've been doing house flipping for the past couple years, but hospitality has always kind of been the end goal. I think flipping was kind of just like a way to kind of like learn the base, learn a little bit about how to like build active income.
yeah,
But
for sure.
I know I was just never really drawn to it, like design, hospitality, building a brand. That's what I really resonate with. Love just like being hospitable. That's essentially what nursing is, right? Being hospitable with other patients. And I think that translates a lot to hotels. So
Yep.
you have this decision, you want to go into hotels. How do you actually do that? I mean, it's one thing to have this idea, but how do you actually make this happen?
It's so funny because I think looking back, like the dots always connect, right? And now, like looking back, it seems so obvious. Like it's like, how did we not think about this sooner? Or like how in the architecture and the built environment for like 15, 20 years, how did we not think about this sooner?
Yeah.
But to be honest, like being in the moment, starting from scratch, even with the background that we had, I don't think like from that perspective, it was any different than I think what any other investor would have done at the time. I think the biggest thing we did is because we were at a conference, I think it happened really well that like we were at this conference. We had already been to BPCon, so we had a bunch of friends that we were meeting there with, and we just started telling everyone. Like literally, that was the first thing at that conference. We're like, we're doing boutique hotels, and everyone knew our background. Like our friends knew that we were doing real estate, that we were doing architecture, that we still had our jobs. They knew how burnt out we were by our jobs, even though we loved them. We were completely burnt out by them. And we just started talking and telling everyone, well, like actually, like we would love to develop and we would love to get into boutique hotels. And all of a sudden, it started this ripple effect of like, actually, you should talk to this person. And then that person was like, you should have you heard of this person? Oh, actually, this person is here. Have you met this person? And all of a sudden at that conference, like we met a ton of people who were all interested in starting to talk about boutique hotels. This was really early. So like it was like through word of mouth of like, oh, let me connect you with so and so and so and so connected me to somebody that was starting a mastermind. So like it literally it just happened that way. And the biggest change that we did was we had to relearn everything that we had learned about real estate because everything that we knew at the time was at the residential scale. So the first thing we did was connect with people, started telling everyone so that people would connect us with the right person. And then also learning how to underwrite commercial. I think that was our biggest once like the light bulb went on, we're like, okay, we know construction, we know how to put a project together, we know permits, zoning, we can put the project together. The part that we don't know and we're not familiar with is underwriting and actually bringing the deal together.
You're also missing the big one of operations, which
Well, yes, and operations, because that was a big part that we wanted to that kind of came through the conversations though. I think as we started talking to people, we started realizing, okay, the business of hospitality, one thing is designing the building and opening, but like by the day you open, that's really when the business starts. Like the business of hospitality really is running the business. It's an active business. Like you don't get into this for passive business. And through our conversations through all these people, we ended up one of our friends, Dave Pere, if you know of him, he's military too, millionaire. We were talking to him and he was like, I have the guy for you. We were at a bar, I think like having dinner, and he immediately connected us to this guy, Blake Daly, who he had six boutique hotels under his belt. And he was actually talking about wanting to start a community. So we started chatting with him and he was like, wait, this is great because I want to start a community and I want to teach, and you guys need someone to teach you. So he started helping us immediately to teach us how to underwrite, how to put a deal together, like the thought process of like, how do you run the underwriting, the operations and everything. I think through him, we were like, wait, like not only do we need to learn how to underwrite and put the deal together, but we need to learn how to operate at scale. And that was, as Josh was saying, I think that was one of the biggest light bulbs that we were like, okay, this is a lot of pieces and parts that we need to learn. Buying the right hotel in the right city, in the right location, like we tried for about 2 years before we bought Terra. It was going to take a while, but we were like, okay, in the meantime, what we can do is start a management company, a co-hosting company. And that's why on the side, we never really talk about that, but that was really the start of us learning how to operate at scale, was by starting a co-hosting company, that we would learn how to hire VAs, how to deal with Airbnb claims, and how to set up SOPs,
Check-in,
cleaners,
checkouts, all of it.
yeah, it was, so we were learning all of this stuff, all the parts and pieces, while we learned and got into like the right hotel. We were very specific about what we wanted to create too, because of our background. So it was kind of like this puzzle of like all these different pieces and education parts that were coming together to make it happen. And we knew it was going to take longer. But yeah, it's been incredibly gratifying to learn all these parts and pieces and to connect with all these people that are just as passionate about hospitality.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I really love that it took you. I mean, you just had this 2 years of just building on the side, like you said, your property management company. But can you talk about how you guys dealt with those 2 years? Because for me, I've been looking at hotels deals also, put a couple LOIs on the time, walked away from one. How did you not get discouraged or just like not have that, like, I need to pivot to something else because this is not working? I mean, it's been 2 years now. Like, how did you persevere through those 2 years?
I mean, we definitely had moments like that. We chased a few properties for months and even like half of a year on one of them, where we were like doing design work and kind of going through all of the steps of underwriting, and not even under contract, but with LOIs. And it's just, there were so many different moments where it was like, well, we got this far and then we found out that something isn't going to work out, and we had to like make the hard decision to back away. We had earnest money that was about to go hard, and then we backed away from it. Literally, was that like
Last day, yeah.
last day.
Yeah.
There were tough moments, and I think we always knew that like the better thing is out there, the better fit is out there, and it was. And it took us almost 2 years, almost that whole time,
Yeah.
of going through and getting enough reps of knowing what's wrong to be able to find out what's right.
I think too, I think it's a big mindset piece for sure. And I think real estate in general, regardless of what you're doing, like flipping or like any part of real estate, I think it requires that constant mindset of like, you're not failing, like you're learning, and everything's a lesson. And sometimes those lessons cost money. Like we did, even though in those situations, like we did walk away and didn't lose our earnest money, like we did put $20,000 down the drain between inspection reports, lawyers, all these things. Like, and sometimes like it costs money to learn, and it costs money to get to the part that you want to get to. So I think it's a constant like being surrounded by the right people that will tell you like, and will reassure you like it's a matter of time, the right one is coming. I think we also really have always believed two things. One, like things always happen the way they're supposed to, even bad things. There's so many times that we've been in a really, really bad situation that we're like, fuck, like why is this happening? And then in the back of our mind, like it takes us like 30 seconds, and then we're like, there's a reason for this. And every single time we've come the other side actually thinking that bad thing happened that we couldn't see at the time, but it got us to the place that it taught us something, and it got us to the place that we needed to be.
I think there's a lot of like, we always look back in retrospect, we go, remember when we were sad about that thing didn't work out? And
Yeah.
then it's like, well, it didn't work out so that something else could work out.
And that was going to be my second point, is I think we learned that no deal is better than a bad deal. And I think there's been so many situations that you just want to make it happen, especially for hotels. For us, like we were just giving it like our 200% to make it happen, but realizing that like now, especially, like we're so thankful that so many of those deals didn't come to life, because we would have been, like we're saying, this is not a passive business. We would be stuck managing and owning hotels that like they weren't the right fit for us. Those were not the right hotels that we wanted to own and manage and dedicate the next 10 years of our lives to. So I think it's and we have so many friends that are going through that process, and it's so discouraging to lose deal after deal after deal. But yeah, I think it's a lot of mindset and a lot of just like continuing to know like the right deal for you is out there, and one day it will all make sense.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. To just kind of just surrendering to life and everything that happens to you. So, could you just talk about those two hotel deals? Like, what were you seeing that told you no, and how did you know like the difference that it was like not like a wrong deal or something that was just like scary?
Yeah, I think both of them. The first one that we were under contract for was we were, so to backtrack a little bit, when we started real estate, we were, like Josh said, we were living in Seattle. We decided to move to Kansas City.
That's where I was headquartered.
The goal was to move to Kansas City for 1 year, buy a bunch of real estate. Interest rates were really good at the time. We're like, okay, we're gonna buy a bunch of real estate. We're gonna live in Kansas City for a year. And for us, we're like, okay, a year goes by so fast. Like if you think what you were doing a year ago, like it's gonna go so fast. We will move there, build a team, the realtor, the contractor, blah, 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 and then we'll come back to Seattle. Well, that obviously in that year of time was when we realized we shouldn't be doing residential, we should be doing hotels. So we knew at that time, we're like, okay, this means we're not going back to Seattle. Like that means we're staying here. And now we're building a different team. Now we need a commercial team. We need a team of contractors. We need a team of brokers. Like we need a team of legal. But we wanted to do it in Kansas City since we had moved there. So I think we were a little bit stubborn on like it had to be Kansas City because we were there. And we were looking specifically for like office buildings that we could transform into hotels because we have that background. We knew how to do it. And I think that first hotel, like it was at a really good price because again, it was an office building. The numbers made really good sense for buying an office building in COVID times when no one wants office buildings. And we were converting into a hotel. But the seller was very hard to work with. He wanted everything for a property that he had never taken a single care for.
It had been struck by lightning a few times. Like there were some weird things that had happened there.
Yeah.
It wasn't being fully utilized in a way that a bank would find lendable.
Yeah.
So there were challenges associated with that side of it too.
And I think again that we were trying so hard to make something work in Kansas City. We had looked at multiple properties in Kansas City, and I think for us walking away from that one was the realization of like, okay, maybe we're trying too hard to make it work in Kansas City. Maybe it's not Kansas City. Like, are we open to looking elsewhere? So that was the thing, like the big lesson for us is that, okay, we can relocate. We've relocated before. We can relocate and start over somewhere. If we opened it up to elsewhere in the country, where would we look? And that was where we found hotel number 2, which was in Colorado, it was in Estes Park, outside of the Rocky Mountain National Park. Super excited about that property. It had everything we wanted. It was opportunity. The hotel itself was really good. It had opportunity for development. But I think the lesson with that one too was, and we always talk about this in our mastermind, it's the clarity of knowing exactly what you want, and what you want, for example, Lorenzo, could be very different to what I want and what Josh wants. And it's all dependent on like what our goals are, what our skill sets are. And I think for us, the thing we were realizing at the time, after this was probably like a year into trying to buy hotels, what we realized is our skill set and our unfair advantage was we're architects. We understand construction really well. We can move so much faster than everyone else. We can create a product that is unique and different because we can both be the architect, developer, owner. Like we control every part of the puzzle. But a big part of that distinction was being able to develop and being able to design and do something different. And in this property in Estes Park, it had all the components. It checked every single box we wanted to. But the thing we found out during due diligence, like hours before escrow money went hard, was that the property, because of its location, its altitude, was no longer fit for development. And
it's above the fire department's like go zone, essentially.
Yeah. And it literally took us 45 days for the city to give us a straight answer. And it would have taken hours and months of litigation and going with the zoning board and with the fire department. And with our experience, we know that like whatever the fire chief says, it's whatever goes. So our entire faith was going to be based on this single person, that the chances were very low for them to allow us to develop in this side of the mountain. So it was incredibly painful because it literally checked every single box that we wanted. But at the end of the day, with no development, it was no longer the right deal for us. It was the right deal for someone else, but not for us, because for our skill sets, what we would have ended up with was a hotel, that great location, but it was already like at the top of the market. It was already like really nice cabins, and like they just needed like a little refreshment in them, which
It wasn't a whole
it
value
wasn't, yeah, it wasn't the value add that Josh and I could bring into these projects. So we ended up walking away again, heartbroken,
Hmm.
but with so many lessons and so many like we there was so much that we took on forward from that, and that it just kept refining exactly what we were looking for. And from there we're like, okay, well, now we moved from Kansas City where we're open to any market, so now we really opened it up to like the entire country, and that's how we found Palm Springs.
It's funny because like we opened up like one variable within that buy box, but like at the same time, we through all of the no's and all of these hurdles had really been able to also narrow into exactly what the criteria were that truly mattered. And so it did help us be even more specific the next time. You're not really starting at square zero again or square one again. You're starting with like a new, very important fundamental building block to start with. And so I think for us, it really helped us narrow into to Terra Palm Springs and to Palm Springs as a market, which, yeah, that's how we got there.
Yeah. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys were focusing initially on properties that were close to you, maybe didn't have as much value add. And after these two, now you're looking anywhere, definitely way more value add.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. It still had like, there was like certain metrics that we always look for, that we had learned for what properties to even start analyzing. Like we always like within 2 hours of a metro area. I think that's a really big one for us. We want to make sure that we're not dependent on airflow, on air travel in case there is a recession. Like we don't want, at least in this scale where we're at right now, like we're not looking to buy in Hawaii. We're like, the only way to get there is travel. We also want to be like easy enough with like enough population around multiple metro locations so that it becomes part of the route of a lot of people who are already coming here. We're not either at a stage of creating a hotel in the middle of the desert and hoping people will come and when there is no demand. So we are very intentionally like looking for areas where there's already demand, and we're working from that demand that exists, not building from scratch and hoping that demand will happen. Like we're very risk adverse from that perspective. National parks, like Josh mentioned. So there's all these things that we need to make sure that like when we're looking at areas and selecting markets, that we are checking the boxes. One of them that we've learned also through the process, I think when we got started in Kansas City, it was narrowing down that avatar that we were designing for and realizing like, okay, if we're going to take on this project of like designing for someone and designing what type of property do we want to design? So we're very intentional not buying motel style properties. We're not just looking at the bottom line and saying, well, we're buying for X amount, we put X amount, and our returns are Y amount. Like that is not enough for us to pursue a project if the project itself is not exciting for us to put all of our time into the design, the branding, the like creating something out of nothing. If it doesn't have that component where we get excited and are passionate, then that's also one of our check boxes. So I think also defining that avatar and who's the person coming here, what age group, how much money do they spend, what is their background, do they have kids, not kids, like all of these things are conversations we've had and that we've defined and that have helped us be very like niche and very narrow down into what markets that would work for and we would get excited to design for, and which markets we would say no to because it's just not the right market for us and we don't want to spend the time and the energy that it's going to take to bring that hotel up to the quality and level that we want.
Yeah, I agree in the fact that, you know, you didn't want to just do one just to do it. That's kind of how I feel. I mean, I've had Isaac French, I've listened to him a couple of times, Ben Wolf, and it's like I get so inspired by what they want to do. And, you know, it's like for me, if an opportunity is like not a fuck yes opportunity, it's like it's a fuck no.
100%. 100%. Cannot agree with that more.
Yeah. So did you guys choose your avatar first before choosing Palm Springs? Did it kind of come from Palm Springs, then you chose the avatar?
I think we kind of built them up like piece by
Kind of
piece.
together. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very parallel.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think with Estes Park, we had already defined that we wanted to build a hotel that was at the top of the market. And then when we were gonna redesign all the cabins, it was 19 cabins. We were gonna make them all like in the upscale, not luxury, because I wouldn't say like that didn't fit the market. Like the people who come to Estes Park are not luxury, but we did want to bring them to an upscale level. And then we were gonna do luxury glamping. So I think like from there we started to find, okay, like this is the kind of person we definitely want, people that are able to pay $300, $400, $500 a night. We didn't know anything about Palm Springs though at this time. And when we walked away, that was actually a very scary time, because with this hotel, we had actually decided like, okay, we will, just like we did for Terra, we will relocate to Colorado. We will do all the construction management. We will live in Estes Park in the mountains. Like we were willing to do whatever it took to make this successful. And at the time, I was, especially for myself, like I was very, very burnt out from my job. And I was in a position where I had to make a decision of whether I was going to pivot 100% or I was going to stay and continue working with my company. Like my company was, I still have an amazing relationship with them. I absolutely love them. But it was definitely like I felt like I was at a crossroads where I couldn't continue doing this half yes, half no of me not being in Seattle. Like they really wanted me to move back to Seattle, to be a leader here, to continue building the team. And here I was in Kansas City, like renovating homes. So I really felt like I was at this crossroad where I had to make a choice. Unfortunately, we ended up walking away from that deal. And I had already told my firm I was quitting because I felt like I had run out of time. I had to make the move, and I decided to jump all in into real estate. But I quit my job and really had no deal. Like it was incredibly terrifying because we had Josh's job and we had no deal for me to dive deep into, but I knew that having the time was going to allow me to like really dive deep and find the right hotel. And it was at that time where our partner Soli, she met someone at a conference who was telling her about their hotel in Palm Springs and how well they were doing. And everything she was saying, we're like, wait, like this is an amazing market. This is exactly, it fits every single criteria that we're looking for. And next thing we know, we're talking to a realtor. He has a bunch of properties to show us. We all fly to Palm Springs, and he showed us probably like 8 to 10 properties during that trip that we took. The first property we walked into was Terra. It was on the market. It was in LoopNet. It was the first property we walked. And at the end of the day, we all kept going back to that property. We are like, that was the one. Like, that's the one. Like, we all like saw the vision and we knew we could transform it into something amazing. And it just fit every single checkbox, including the big development, the big architecture. And we're like, okay, we'll move to Palm Springs next then. So it was, we've definitely been in the last 4 years of like living with 2 suitcases and doing whatever life asked of us to do in order to succeed. We were willing to do it.
Yeah, in order to make everything work that needed to work, we had to become kind of fluid to fit around the other restrictions or the other constraints of projects and development and everything else that was going on. So we had to put aside like living in a specific place and just kind of become a little bit more nomadic, which was worked out well for us in the end.
Yeah, that's amazing that you have that flexibility. I wish I could just piece out nursing and then go to do the hotel stuff. But I think that time will come, and I thankfully I have an amazing supportive wife who's like, you know, she's in school right now to be a nurse practitioner, and she's like, once I'm done with school, you can quit and go full time into this. And so
Yeah.
I'm definitely grateful for that. So this hotel that you find, Terra Palm Springs, and you go to look at these other properties, were they all on market? Were they some of them off market? Because this kind of goes back to just like developing relationships with brokers. Just
I
like,
think if I remember correctly, the broker was showing us all properties that were either on market or that were going to be on the market in the next month.
There was like 5 or 6 properties, I think.
Well, funny enough though, one of our partners, so we have our partnership is two couples. It's Josh and I, and then Sully and Carrick. And Carrick they're both brokers. He's a commercial broker. He can speak to, and we make fun of him because he is amazing over the phone. He can talk to anyone over the phone.
How many people do you know that love cold calling?
And the funny thing is,
Very rare breed.
very rare breed. And it's funny, we were on this trip in Palm Springs, the four of us, first time in Palm Springs, walking all these properties, and like we had the realtor who was walking us through all these properties. But Carrick on the side had built this relationship with this old lady that would be on the phone for hours and hours and hours because she had this property that she wanted to sell, but she hadn't told her team, she hadn't told her partners, no one. Like, she was just like, I want to sell this property. This property has not been functioning for about 10 years because she ended up inheriting the property from, like, I think her nephew who had died, and that was like, he had built the business. So anyways, she's, the whole time that we are doing this trip in Palm Springs, Carrick is on the phone with this old lady. And funny enough, we ended up walking that property, but that was the only off-market property we walked, and it was because of this relationship. We actually had to lie to the management when we showed up so that we had to make something up and say, like, we're going to do an event or something, and we wanted to look at the facility because we couldn't tell them that the owner was thinking about selling. Funny enough,
we would have alerted the front desk and the staff and everything else.
That property is hotel number 2 that we bought in December. So we walked that hotel even before
Terra, right?
Yeah, we walked it before Terra, but the timing didn't work. The money amounts didn't work. Her relationship with her family and the other owners didn't work. But that was, to your point, like the power of relationships. We've had that relationship longer than since we bought Terra, and we ended up opening Terra. We did everything for Terra. Opened a year later, we buy this other hotel that we had walked even prior to walking Terra.
It's amazing. So if someone's new to this, would you recommend just going to a place first, building relationships with brokers, just touring some properties before actually putting offers in? Because I mean, you can see all the pictures online, but when you go see a property, like there's no feeling that you can get from a picture.
100%. I think like definitely building the relationships, and if it's in a different market, I would recommend going. I would recommend, like, we always tell the people in our mastermind that are joining, like, definitely tell, like, I think number one thing, like, and I think like through our story, you've kind of heard a little bit about like the thought process of like building that list of like, what is your buy box? And that buy box looks very different to each person. Be very clear and specific, and then like reach out to all the brokers in your market that are putting the properties online. That might be like, there might be a motel style property that you have zero interest for, but reach out to that broker, introduce yourself, talk to them on the phone, tell them who you are. This is what you're looking for. And I think obviously brokers, it's all about relationship. Like, they want to know that you're serious. And I think one of the first things, the reason we got the property in Estes Park, there was 2 other people that were interested in that property, but we put an LOI. And this was like a Tuesday, and we told the broker, schedule a walkthrough. We'll walk the property on Friday. And we had never been to Estes Park, but we immediately we showed that we were serious, and we walked the property. We met the owner and immediately created a relationship with them versus the other 2 people putting LOIs. Even though the numbers were higher than our offer, they didn't build the relationship with the seller. And the seller ended up wanting to work with us. He was like, I think you guys will build the best out of this. You guys are the best position for this. Like, I want to work with you. And he accepted our offer because we went to the market and we built that relationship with him. So
yeah, there's something to be said for traveling to the place and really diving in. And I think a lot of sellers too, they care about who is what the next iteration of their property, their baby is. And so I think that they want to know that the person who's on the other side of the table is just as serious and committed to understanding and experiencing that and carrying it to whatever the next, destination might be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So what made you guys realize that this was the one? And like, what was the purchase price? What was your all-in renovation budget? Like, what was all the details?
it was honestly a combination of everything.
I don't know. I feel like the one thing it hadn't been operating in 2 years. And I think that for both of us, one of our major buy box components that we learned from the Estes Park deal falling through was that value add is like the most important component so that we can put an imprint on it and really elevate it to another level. And there was room for that in this deal because it hadn't been operating and it was pretty much a blank slate. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, and I think it was obviously location. Like I think location you can't, if location is not good, like you can't, number one thing, location. And this location, from all the properties we walked, this was the best location. It wasn't like too close to downtown where like it becomes like a noise issue or like it's too much activity, but still walking distance, like perfect location, perfect views, like everything. It fit all the boxes of why people come to Palm Springs. But like Josh said, I think the biggest thing for us is that we saw the tremendous amount of potential that this property had. The owner had already taken it down to the studs, parts of it, and then he ended up like closing it up and painting everything white. Like he had taken the toilets out, the tile, like literally there was nothing. It was white. And it looked horrible. Like I think a lot of people got scared.
I mean,
Yeah.
this property was on, it was on the market.
On
It was
LoopNet,
on
yeah.
LoopNet, yeah.
And I think that helped us because I think we were like in that perfect in between where like it's a 13-room hotel. So it's too small for people who bought hotels previously. But the property itself required so much work that it was too much of a project for someone who was just starting out as their first hotel. Like there was no beds, no toilets, nothing. You had to start from scratch. You had to do permits. You had to find a really good contractor, not a residential contractor. So it was a perfect in between for us. And we just, because of the condition of the property, like it looked so bad. And I think Josh and I were just like giggling. We're like, oh my God, there's so much potential here. And same with the second one. Like the second one was, even though it was operational, it was so bad, just like so bad that it, like it's just full of potential. Like everything we're like, it's almost like, and I mean, and like what we're doing on it, it's we've taken everything basically down to beyond the studs. Like it's everything's gonna be brand new.
Brand new building.
Yeah.
Once it's
Yeah. So besides being close proximity to LA, San Diego, and it being an obviously huge value add, like walk me through your design mindset, Josh, like especially like when you're walking through it, like what are the things you're looking out for? What are the things you're paying attention to? Like just that whole designer POV.
So I feel like the first thing that, I mean, and we'll bounce ideas off of each other. We've been working together on these projects for
Long enough.
long enough now to know like what the sense of it is. But I think the first thing, you know, you obviously you're going to look at the building, you're going to see what the condition of the space is. But like for us, a big thing is when you enter, you open the door, what are you looking at? What are you seeing around you? What is that entry experience that you wanted to have? What does it currently have? And that was, I think, the big move that we had at Terra was that we shifted a couple of those key elements around to create like a social space that was tucked away from the rest of the rooms. The way that you entered when it was, I don't even remember the name of it, Barefoot Inn. So when it was the Barefoot Inn, you entered in and you were kind of like hidden and nestled within like the room area, which was kind of awkward. And so like we wanted to convert some rooms away from being like a lobby space to make them, or it was a manager's suite. And so people would like stop in front of the manager's suite to get like their keys. And instead we're like, no, we want those to be rooms. And like, we're going to flip around. There was like an a secondary exit. And we're like, that's going to be the main entrance now because it looks at the mountains. And we're going to create like this social bar experience that's, you know, separated from the rest of that. And so I think for us, that first reaction is to understand what's the first vibe, like what's that first moment when someone comes in, what are they going to see and experience? It sets the tone for the rest of their stay, and it just is the best possible first impression you can make, and it's so important from a design perspective. And every property, it's going to be a little different what the characteristics of those decisions are going to be, but you really you get a lot of the feeling, the personality of a building just by walking through it that first time. And I think we always will take our own initial reactions and we'll share them and say, I think this is what it needs, I think that's what it needs, and bounce those ideas until we come up with something that's cohesive.
Yeah, and I think like this property in particular too, Another thing, like everything that Josh is saying, like the exterior, we saw a lot of opportunity in like completely transforming the space and building something that wasn't there. But additional, like the existing rooms were like really good layouts. The bedrooms themselves were very large rooms.
Yeah.
The bathrooms, the plumbing stack was like really awkward because the vanities were like sandwiched between the toilet and the shower, leaving like every single bathroom with like a 24-inch vanity. So we know like, okay, that's not going to be luxury. No one wants a small sink in a bathroom. But the bathrooms were so big that we had room to move those vanities to the opposite wall. And most of the rooms ended up with like double vanities. So like we just by walking the building the first time, we were able to like pinpoint all those opportunities of like, okay, toilet and shower, great location, vanity, easy move. Like we're walking, this is like our train of thought as we're walking through the building. We're like checking all these little things that make a big impact design wise, and how hard or how easy it is to accomplish them. And everything we're like, that's easy, that's easy. Okay, we redo the stair, the hot tub, like everything. We're just like, as we're walking, we're like bouncing ideas off each other, and like we start realizing, okay, like how complex or how easy is this project going to be to achieve the final outcome. And obviously like there's a big design process, and we move really fast, but there is a big design process in like material selection and layouts and all of this stuff. But like I think that initial walkthrough, like you said, like photos only tell you so much of the story, but like once you start walking it, especially if you've had experience renovating, doing big renovations, like it starts to click in of like you start to picture the space of like what are the opportunities and what would be the biggest challenges that you would have to face.
Yeah. One thing I would add there, I think that looking at a property on LoopNet or whatever it is, just looking at pictures, you just don't get a sense of those things. I think walking into the space and feeling it it's just different. I don't know how else to describe it.
As someone who isn't in architecture or design, like what's the highest leverage, like design decisions that people should be focusing on?
I would say it totally depends on your avatar and who you're designing for. And I think we talk about this with a lot of the people that we either design for, or like even in our mastermind, like when we're giving advice to people. For our clientele, we knew we had done a lot of research. Once we got excited about the hotel, we obviously started doing a lot of research. We knew nothing about Palm Springs at the time. So it was understanding like who's coming here, what is the age group, how much money are they spending, what does the tourist spend, what are the taxes that the city collects. Like all of this helps us understand a picture of like who is this person that's coming, why are they coming, what's missing. So all of that helps us create a story of like, what can we use from a design perspective that can meet those needs that people are looking for, or create something that doesn't exist if there's lacking of something. So I think like understanding who your avatar is, I would say, is like first and foremost, because you don't, and I think that's why we walked away from Estes Park. In that hotel, the cabins were okay. Like they did not deserve, like we would have never been able to spend the money that we spent in Terra and ever get that money back out, because the person coming to Estes Park is not the one looking for a soaking tub or looking for a shower with a double shower head or like a big vanity with like large mirrors. Like they don't care. That is not what they're there for.
They're there to get out into the woods.
Yeah. So
East.
the strategy we would have used design wise would have been very different there than what we would have done at Terra. So I think I wouldn't just apply the same design decision everywhere. I think really it comes to understanding your market and your avatar and understanding what it is that they're craving for, and that what it's in some markets that we worked with, like we were just designing a hotel in Michigan, and it was very much for couples. The bedrooms themselves super small, super limiting, and but the avatar really, we wanted it to be like a couples retreat. So, and it wanted to be this high end, so we put a big effort into the bathrooms, creating like really well photographed, really beautiful bathrooms that couples will want to come and enjoy without their kids, without anything. But we knew we were compromising a lot of the space in the bedroom in order to do that. So it became all about the bathroom and then the exterior amenities. And it was all about how do we create all these amenities that work in Michigan during the winter and in the summer. So I think I think it's, yeah, like understanding your market, your avatar, and how to maximize that to create something, and not just copying what's been done, is like truly diving deep into like the psyche of like someone who's coming here, like why are they coming and how can you fit that need.
And I think, just to add maybe a couple things to that one, I think that you don't need to have an architecture construction background to be able to answer a lot of those questions. I think that there's a lot of people that we've met in real estate who are not formally trained or have worked in the built environment profession who have unbelievably awesome ideas.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a lot of value just in being able to answer those questions of the avatar. And just walking through a space, you'll get a sense of it too. And I think trusting your gut sometimes too, and then going out and finding people who do have complementary skill sets to you that can bring some of those other values to the table. And so that also is a big way that you can work in those capacities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. Definitely finding people who complement your skill sets. So I may not be that designer, but find someone who is.
100%. Yeah. And I think we always joke about this, like there's nothing special about what we're doing, that we're doing it because we're designers. Like anyone can do what we're doing. And the only thing that like being designers helps us is that we are able to move that much faster because we start a project and we've already in our heads, we have years of experience of like, we know exactly what the next step is. Like we closed on both hotels and we were starting construction the next day because we had already submitted permits. Like, and obviously for someone who's not an architect or has an architect in their team, that costs money. Like you would have to hire an architect and pay them, but you could, like that you could get to the same level or start working with someone and bring someone in that can bring that value. So I think it definitely, it makes a difference and it helps you work faster. And I think be more specific so you're not just copying your neighbor, just doing more out of the same. But there is no reason that like that is a limiting factor of like why we're able to do something and others can't. Like that it only helps us to move faster.
If someone was in my situation where I don't have the design and construction background, do you think it's better to bring someone on as a partner like a GP or just hire them on as like a consultant?
Very, very hard to say without knowing like more specifics, I would say, to like each deal. Cause like you need to know what their interests are, what their ambitions are. And I think before you're even talking about being partners necessarily, like making sure that your goals and their goals are truly aligned. I think that's the most important thing about finding the right partners.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I wouldn't necessarily partner with someone just because they bring design and construction. Like that wouldn't be the only thing that I would look for. When we decided to partner with our partners, we had so many calls to make sure we were aligned to that, their goals. What does your typical day look like in your future? Like, what do you want to be doing in the most ideal world? Like, what is your role? There's so many things that like you need to, like, you are married this person. And it's not just for, like we said, like opening the hotel. It feels like such a big task, but that's really just step one of being successful in the hotel. So like if you're bringing in someone for equity, like what is their role once you start operating? I think there's definitely a lot of value. Like if you find a partner that is fully aligned with you, that can bring that value, that expertise, especially if they have construction experience and are able, like there's so much knowledge just in that and being able to walk a site and understand, like see something and be able to call it out and be like, hey, that's wrong. Hey, you're missing this. Like, hey, this needs to be moved to 6 inches because I already know that I'm going to have these issues. You haven't even closed the wall, but I'm already seeing it. There's so much value in that. So if someone can bring all that value, I think it's super critical, but I wouldn't use that as the only reason to partner with someone because there's a whole, like the whole part of the business that still has to function and that still, unless you're going to be hiring a third party management company, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people hire management for hotels and nothing wrong with that. But yeah, I think that it's a whole alignment in a lot of different facets more than just the role alone.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I learned that definitely from some of the partnerships I've had. I mean, aside from just your overall goals, it's like, how do they communicate? What's their
100%.
communication style is so important. It's like, if they communicate with someone bad, that's like a reflection of your brand and a reflection of you and their morals and values. So yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
so much more that goes into it. Like,
And
what
having
they say.
issues, I think the biggest thing too is like how do they handle stress? How do they
Yes.
handle a bad situation when shit hits the fan and you're all stressed and you're like, what are we gonna do? Like, how is that handled? Like that tells you so much about someone. And having great partners can be like the most fun. Like we're incredibly grateful for our partners. Like we have so much fun with them. We love seeing them. Like we hang out with them like outside of work. And it's great to build that, but it has taken, just like with any relationship with your wife, with your husband, like it's intentional and it's a lot of work to get to that level of partnership where like you can rely on each other on a good day, but like especially on the bad days, you're like, okay, you all got my back and we're all in this together. And that takes a lot of time to find and to cultivate.
Yeah, I love it. So good. So I just really want to get into the details really quick. Like, how much did you guys buy this for? What was the renovation? Like all day.
For Terra, right?
Yeah, Terra
First.
first.
Okay. So Terra, we bought it for 2.75 million.
What was it listed for?
Three.
Okay.
3 million.
Okay.
So yeah, we negotiated a little bit. We ended up with 2.75. It's funny, like just side note, just like what we were saying about relationships, like we're still friends with the seller because the seller ended up being like a developer and he owns all these properties and he really liked us. So like it's always great.
I mean, he had gotten stuck in the permitting process and saw that we were able to, I think, achieve a vision that he had for it that he wasn't able to, and he appreciated that.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Diana's saying,
We still have a good relationship.
yeah.
But yeah, so we listed for 3, we bought it for 2.75. We ended up doing a syndication. And so we have 4 GP partners, and I forget the exact number. I would say like it's around 30 LPs. We put 1.2 million into the construction of the hotel. So it's 13 rooms, so almost $100,000 per key. With the hotel, we did everything. Like we mentioned, like the hotel was a blank slate. So everything from like finishes to all the furniture, exterior, we basically demoed the whole thing. It was like big concrete patio with a pool. We demoed all of that, landscaping. We added a bar. We added all these wellness amenities. We added a Himalayan salt sauna, a cold plunge, a rain room, hot tub. Like we added all these amenities, a spa room, which actually the spa has been, I think, like the most surprising and like positively because this was something that we wanted to test. And with all of these amenities, same with the bar, like everything was just like a test for us. It was our first hotel and first one in Palm Springs. So when we underwrote the deal, we only underwrote it with the revenue from the rooms because we knew we know what we can aim for, like ADRs, occupancy. We know the market. We know what we're trying to achieve. But we had all these additional revenue sources that we didn't really like put into our underwriting because we didn't know if it was going to flop or if it was going to do really well. The massage room has been one that's been really exciting because we created this small little room for massages and it brings almost the same amount of revenue per month as a room. So it's almost like we have 14 rooms in the hotel.
We bought the hotel. It was an 11.
It was 11 rooms.
Hotel. So we've taken it from basically 11 revenue streams to 15.
15 with the bar.
15-ish?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, we opened in January of 2025. We closed in June of 2024, 6 months of renovation, opened January 25. It was a wild construction. Don't recommend, don't ever do that in 6 months. I think we almost died, all of us.
Give ourselves a lot more buffer. It was hellish to do that.
Yeah. But yeah, we've been operating for a year now. And in that period of time, like you mentioned, we've had really good press come to the hotel. Like we were in Vogue, we were in Forbes and Travel and Leisure. It's been a really exciting venture and a really, really exciting to build this brand. We've been operating for almost a little bit over a year now. So we are currently in the phase of we're preparing for a refinance this summer. We bought it with a hard money lender because the property was not operational for over 2 years. So no commercial bank was going to lend us on the property. So right now we're getting ready to refinance in the summer and get into a commercial loan.
It's amazing. You guys are crushing it.
Yeah,
And
it's been really fun.
6 months for a full renovation. That's crazy. Is Palm Springs just a little bit more lenient than other areas?
To be honest, this is another thing that we learned, very thankfully that we learned it the right way. Josh and I, this is where like your experience can actually hurt you. Josh and I, coming from our background in everything we've done other than like our side residential real estate projects, everything has been ground up construction. Like we've never done big renovations in our jobs. Our jobs primarily do new construction or like renovations, like for your case, like renovations that are pretty much new construction.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And our experience in working in these multi-million-dollar projects is like there's a process and a permitting process, and like you end up with these giant sets of like 500 plus pages of all your architectural drawings, engineering, structural, and that is what you submit to the city. And when we got under contract for Terra, we immediately started working on this giant permit set to submit everything to the city of what we were doing. We didn't have a contractor at the time. We were interviewing contractors left and right, and there were so many red flags. So many people, especially as a woman in this business, not a fun part to take on. But we interviewed so many people. Eventually, we ended up with someone who actually was the seller's recommendation. It was his contractor that he introduced us to at the end of the transaction. Like he liked us enough, and at the end, he was like, "Let me introduce you to my contractor," and he's a developer. So we're like, "Thank you, like this is great." But the number one thing he taught us immediately was your giant set of drawings. We sat down with him and we piecemealed the whole thing. He told us what pages, like how to break it down into multiple packages, because he said in the city of Palm Springs, the building department is very small. So if we had submitted the giant set we were planning to submit, the city would see that package and they would just send it to LA or to San Diego because it was too big for them to review. So we would end up doing the permitting process of going through the process of San Diego or LA.
The permanent could have ended up
It could have
the full time.
the whole 6 months. But this contractor that has worked in the Valley for 20 plus years, very familiar with the process, he helped us break it down into digestible packages. And basically, we ended up submitting all these small renovation packages that ended up being like an over the counter for all of them, like ended up being approved within like a week or two. The biggest one that like did take a few months was building the bar, because that was a new construction, and that one we did have to go through the LA process. Like that did get sent to LA. But even so, like the way that we faced the project, we were able to like get started with all the rooms, get started with all the renovation while the permits were being approved for the bar addition. So having someone that understands the city and that knows the permitting process is absolutely crucial. We could have like completely ruined the deal if we had done it the way that we've been taught how to do it based on our previous experience. So that was one that we've learned thankfully the right way. And then for the second hotel, we did it the exact same way. He told us exactly, like we started meeting with the city even before submitting permits, telling them about the project. I think it's always important to be very upfront with the city of like, what are you planning to do? What is your brand? Like you want to get them excited. They want your projects. They want investors to come in and do these things. So for the second hotel, again, we started meeting with the city very early on. They told us exactly how to submit the permits and we followed their direction. And yeah, we've been able to actually very similar process. We got approved for the renovation of the rooms pretty much immediately. And right now we're waiting for the permits we're doing like a 5,000 square foot addition to the hotel. We're still waiting for those permits, but we weren't delayed with the renovation of the rooms. We have been moving ahead on those since day one.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Talk about stars aligning between going to Palm Springs, finding the hotel, finding hotel number 2 without you knowing, finding the best contractor, and talk about just like so happy for
But
you
it's
guys.
all connections though. Like, and I think like that's the biggest thing. It's like the relationship building. Like we wouldn't have met that contractor if we hadn't built a relationship with the seller.
Came to us. There's that first trip.
Yeah. Like it's every I think like that's like a common theme that we've been talking about is just the importance of like just really connecting with the local people, with the brokers, with the sellers, like really showing your vision and showing that you're serious, that you're not gonna like sit on like get under contract with them and like waste their time and money. Like people want to do business with good people, and I think if you show that face and like you connect with them, people will want to do business with you.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, we're running short on time, so I will definitely not to get the chance to talk about hotel number 2. There'll be episode number 2 when you guys come back on. But I appreciate you guys so much. Really quickly, like, what's besides your 2 hotels? What's your favorite other hotel that gave you so much inspiration, or just like a favorite hotel that you've traveled to in the past?
Oh man.
There's really good ones that, especially now that we're like in the business, we're like very intentional now, and we're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's a business expense.
We've been traveling a lot more just to like learn about how other people are doing things or like different details and different
Yeah.
experiences. So it's been a lot of fun. But
I would say the one that we keep going back to is the one in Kauai.
Honolulu.
In Honolulu. That was one that was like in our bucket list for a long time to go to, and we were able to go to it last year after we opened Terra. And it's been really cool, like with the mindset of like now we're operators, like we open our own hotel, like we look at everything, how they do everything, like their process, their like it's a really clean operations. It's a really clean, like I love the ethos of the brand itself and like what they stand for, how they help the community, how they help the environment. Their design is absolutely spectacular.
They're at a whole different scale.
Yeah, but I would say that's one that we always admire as a brand and as a design itself, like as an overall like beginning to end. We've really enjoyed our stay there. Really recommend it.
Okay, have to take it out and take my wife.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys so much for coming on. How can the listeners get a hold of you guys?
I would say the best way is Instagram. Our Instagram handle is at D.I.Fi. That's probably the best way. We are right now like pretty busy, so I apologize for those that reach out. It takes us a second to respond. I'm always like apologizing, like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
In construction right now, we're
yeah.
back and forth between Palm Springs and Seattle quite a bit.
Yeah, but that's probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Awesome. Well, everyone, if you guys found any value from today's show, if you guys are looking to get into hotels, share this with someone who might find value. As always, I'm Lorenzo Mercado. This is Diana Ossa and Josh Dobken. Please, as always, yeah, just share it. And yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. See you guys in the next one.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Yep. See ya. Peace.